Good morning, everybody. It's Barb Katie here, and today is just absolutely fantastic. The sun is shining. The sky is blue. It's warming up today. It's actually going to be above freezing, and life is wonderful. However, the weekend had its challenges, as you may be able to sort of judge from the title of today's discussion with all of you. Don't cry over spilled milk. And yes, it's been that kind of a weekend. I don't know if you've ever had a day or two where things just seem to be determined to go wrong or not. But this weekend certainly was filled with funny challenges. Not so funny at the time, but nonetheless funny in retrospect. When I was a child, my parents used to love to read it to us before we went to bed. And some of the things they read to us were Aesop's fables. They were short, easily understood, and wonderful little learning lessons before we were tucked into bed for the night. And over this weekend, I had time to sort of reflect on the messages from these little stories that I learned as a child. And the first one was, don't cry over spilled milk. We were planning on doing barbecued ribs as part of one of the meals this weekend, and had planned a really nice dinner with a wonderful fresh broccoli salad and with ribs as the feature item. And we were baking them in the oven, and they were smelling wonderful, just absolutely wonderful. And everybody was getting hungry, and my sons were home. Everyone was getting hungry, and it was about time to take them out. And my youngest son went over to the oven, opened the door, and we had them in a big pan. And he lifted them out, and just as he lifted them out, guess what? You're right. The pan slipped. And we had ribs and sauce and a broken dish everywhere. Just absolutely everywhere. I did not know the sauce could travel that far. It was impressive. Nor did I understand how far little shards of glass could travel. But no one was hurt. No one was burnt. It's just dinner plans changed. And at the time, my son was really upset, and he was berating himself. How could I be so clumsy? Blah, blah, blah. And finally, one of his brothers just looked at him and said, don't cry over spilled milk. You did not deliberately intend to do that. It was something that happened, and crying over it isn't going to fix it. Let's clean it up. Let's regroup. Let's call. There's a local place where we can get ribs, and order ribs in, and we'll be fine. We'll just do the rest of the meal. So that's what all of us did. We pitched in. We got it all cleaned up pretty much, put it back together, and continued with a really great evening. Just us visiting and talking. And as I'm sitting there thinking, I said, yeah, you're right. You learned that as a little girl. Don't cry over spilled milk. You can't unspill the milk. Once it's done, it's done. And you just have to deal with it, and you just have to go on. And that's really the way life is. Well, that was punctuated throughout the weekend. I have never seen us be such klutzes in my house in my life. It wasn't too much later in the day than one of the guys sat down with I think he had a glass of iced tea in his hands. Doesn't really matter, but he sat down with it. And when he did, he spilled it. Now, this is a grown man. You would think he would be able to firmly set the glass safely onto the table as he has done many times in his life, but not today. It was not our weekend for that kind of thing. The tea spilled everywhere. It just spilled. And every single one of us over the weekend spilled something. It was like a point was being made that we needed to understand and embrace in our lives. Things happen that you can't control. You may not like them. You may not like what is behind them or the results of them, but you just have to deal with whatever it is, and you have to move on. So last night, as I was getting ready for bed, and I usually go through a list of gratitudes every night, and I'm laughing to myself as I'm going through my gratitude list, and I'm saying I'm so glad the boys got to come in. I'm so glad we got to laugh about some of the things that happened, and be reminded of what's really important in our family, and all this stuff. And I got to thinking, that's something I really would like to share with everybody, because these lessons learned as a child growing up were really very, very powerful in my life, and in ways I didn't even understand when I was a young child. They have actually shaped how I view the world at large. And I think you probably have the same life lessons from different occurrences and things that you too carry into your life. So I got to thinking about some of my favorites among Aesop's fables, because I really did enjoy Aesop's fables, and I found out as I grew older and I was rearing my own children that I find myself falling back on them. So in addition to that one about not crying over spilled milk, I just like to touch base with you and remind you all of something all of us know. But as Aesop would tell it to us, if we were little kids and we were sitting around his knees and he was sharing his story with us. And the next one is slow and steady wins the race. And I think every single one of us knows that one. If you've ever watched a Bugs Bunny cartoon, you've seen this one. Slow and steady wins the race. The story of the tortoise and the hare. And in the story, the hare is boasting about his speed in front of all the other animals and challenges any of them to dare to race him, because he knows he is the speediest guy in the forest. Well, finally, the tortoise pokes his head out of his shell and accepts the challenge. At first, the hare thinks it's a great big joke, but the tortoise is really very serious. He really thinks he has a chance here. So, soon after they began the race, the hare runs full speed ahead, and to make fun of the tortoise, he decides he's just going to take a nap until the tortoise finally catches up with him. He's really, really cocky about this whole thing, because he knows he's got this in the bag. All he has to do is get up, take a few steps, and he's going to be across the finish line. But the poor old tortoise just keeps trudging along, slowly going and going, confident that if he keeps putting one foot in front of the other and keeps on trying, he's really going to achieve his goal. When the hare wakes up finally, he notices that the tortoise is now way ahead of him, almost ready to cross the finish line. And before he can get himself straightened up and dusted off, the tortoise has crossed the line and won the race. And that's the basic moral. Slow and steady wins the race. Sometimes in our lives, it might look like other people are racing ahead of us, and going to beat us. Well, what is the goal Is the goal to be first, or is the goal to reach a point in time where you feel better about yourself? Uh, None of us can ever know what obstacles could stop us in our tracks when it looks like something is a sure thing. And there really isn't anything that's a 100% guaranteed sure thing. But the lesson here is it's important, no matter what happens, going back again to the spilled milk, you've got to keep moving forward. And one day you will get there. There's no time limit on the race that we have to get to our best health. In fact, there isn't even a final destination, in as much as we want to always try to be healthier, to be our very best selves. And while reaching one's ideal goal weight is one measure of success, it's just one measure. There are many other ways we can evaluate our success and our progress, and that we can remind ourselves that we have the time to do this the right way, to go slowly and steadily forward in a way that's going to work for us for the rest of our lives, not just for the short term, one day, one race. And so after I had thought about that one for a while, I thought about one that actually I didn't really understand fully until I was probably 6 or 7 years old. And this was the story of the crow and the pitcher. And I can still, to this day, at our family home place, see an old crow up on the porch banister doing this very thing that the story talks about. And what it was, I don't know if you've ever had pitchers. We usually had glass milk jugs that had been cleaned and were sitting out waiting for the milkman to pick them up the next day on the front porch. And sometimes it would rain and there'd be some water in the milk jug. And when I say milk jug, I don't mean the narrow neck one. I mean the one that's got the fairly big opening at the top. Anyway, this old crow, one hot summer day, was really thirsty, and there was water in the bottle of this milk container. And I actually watched the crow do what Aesop's fable was about. The crow must have been really, really thirsty, because we hadn't had rain for too long that week. It had rained earlier in the week, and then we hadn't had any more, and most of the puddles and stuff that were around had dried up. But there was still some water in the bottom of this bottle. And the crow came over, and there was an alley behind our house, and in the alley were gravel. And I watched, and he flew over to the gravel, and he picked up a rock in his beak, and he brought it back to the pitcher and dropped it in. And I remembered as a little kid, because I was just being read the story by my parents, and I thought, that bird is doing just what that story said. And so I sat really quiet on the step, and I watched. And every time he would drop a gravel into the bottle, he would stick his beak in to see if he could reach the water yet. And it took him quite a while, but he was persistent. And eventually, the water began to rise as he added more pebbles to the bottle. And eventually, he could actually get his beak far enough down into the water to actually get a drink and quench his thirst. And I was so excited, but I didn't want to move, because I was afraid if I moved, he'd fly away. But I wanted my mom and dad to see it. but I had to sit there very, very quietly and watching. And I mean, the lesson is obvious. Do what you can. Little by little does the trick. You might think that losing a quarter of a pound is nothing, but they add up. I know somebody in the group here a few days ago was talking about a stick of butter is a quarter of a pound. And imagine if you lose 10 pounds, you've got 40 sticks of butter that have been removed from your body. That just absolutely boggles my mind when you think about it. Little by little, a big difference happens. And if you don't succeed with the first loss, keep trying and then try again. Persistence is the key to solving any problem that we have. There is a way. That crow sat and thought for a long time before he came up with what he thought might be a solution for him to get his beak down far enough in that bottle to get a drink of water. And he didn't quit with the first pebble when it didn't work. He kept trying. And that's the way it is with us. If your first solution doesn't solve the problem, try another one. Or if that one seems like it might work, persist in it. Keep trying. It's going to take time for us to accomplish what we have set out for ourselves. But if we're patient and persistent, we will find what works best for us. After all, trying is better than just giving up and saying, well, I can't do this. I'm just going to quit. That's never the answer. There's always a way that we can succeed if we persist. Don't get discouraged. Don't get upset when things don't go exactly the way you planned. Recall some of the lessons from your childhood. Maybe you also were read Aesop's fables as a child, and there are lots of lessons back from those stories that we can reflect on as adults that will give us a little extra encouragement and motivation to keep on trying as we move forward each and every day to live our very best lives as successfully as we can. I believe in you. I believe in our ability together to find the solutions that work best for us in this journey that we're on. And I'm really hoping that this is the beginning of an excellent week for all of us. And I'll look forward to talking to you next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.